Hello writers, come write with me. My name is Michaela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my channel, Write with Michaela. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. Today is Tuesday, and today we're going to talk about a few terms. So let's look at the terms we're going to use. I'm going to start with sadistic and masochist. And then we'll see if we can throw something else in. The first term we're going to look at, like I said, is sadistic. It is an adjective. We've talked about adjectives before. So what's an adjective? An adjective describes a noun. Hint, hint. It could describe your protagonist or your antagonist. So let's look at the definition and see which one it fits the best. Sadistic means deriving pleasure from inflicting pain, punishment, suffering, or humiliation on others. A person who is sadistic gets pleasure or enjoys being cruel to or hurting another person. That sounds to me like it is perfect for our antagonist. There are some sexual connotations as well with this term, but you could look that up yourself. We're not going into that part. Now, let's think about the Pirates of the Caribbean. In one of those movies, with Davy Jones, Davy Jones orders Will Turner to receive lashes. And Will's father, who is on the ship, takes the job. He volunteers for the job. He takes the job. And then after the incident, the father explained to Will later that the person that usually gives lashes relished lashing limbs off bodies or something to that effect. Basically, the father was doing Will a favor by giving him the lashes. And for our purposes, the person who normally gave lashes would be sadistic or a sadist. In another film, RoboCop, a vicious gang received pleasure from killing Murphy. And Murphy was revived as the robot, and he went after the gangs. I don't remember many of the details, but I remember the gruesome violence. I remember bits and pieces of other movies that are sadistic or have a sadist in them. One piece I remember is a bike gang, like motorcycle bikes, that they beat up a guy and then they handcuffed him to a car that was like broken down car or something. And they gave the guy a saw. And then they set off a bomb that was supposed to go off, I don't know, maybe an hour later or something. So the guy had the choice of sawing off his own hand or blowing up with a car. Just gruesome. Just horrid. I remember another where some kingpin had put someone through a tree shredder. And then he delivered or had the bag of remains, bloody mess remains delivered to somebody to kind of say, don't mess with me. Or this will happen to you too. So, just awful scenes. Awful, awful, awful scenes. Just cringe-worthy stuff. So, for our purposes, I guess the question for us writers is, how bad do we want our bad guy or antagonist to be? And does our antagonist enjoy or get pleasure from the sufferings of others? You can have bad guys that just kind of, they feel like they're right, they're misinformed, or they're brainwashed or whatever, they're misinformed, or they look at things wrong, and then they go off and they're trying to fix things in their own way. but the sadistic person actually gets pleasure from the suffering of others. So you can have different personalities for your antagonist as well, as we have discussed that other side, another session. So leave a comment on a character in one of your books that is sadistic, or leave a comment on a movie or book you've read with a sadistic person, so we can kind of see all these things. Okay, that brings us to our next term, which isn't much better, is a masochist. Okay, this is a person who derives pleasure or enjoys an activity that appears to be painful or tedious to him or her. This term also has sexual connotations that I won't include, and you can look them up. Let me repeat the definition, because this is kind of mind-blowing kind of thing. A masochist is a person who is prone to suffering and humiliation. This person gets some perverse pleasure or gratification from pain, degradation, self-denial, and or humiliation. This person might look for ways to torment themselves in their day-to-day. One way to tell if a person is a masochist is if they can't say no to things. They take everything on. They're very invested in pushing themselves to be good, and they're very hard on themselves. If, say, they miss a day of exercise or they eat that piece of pie, then they're very hard on themselves and stuff because they didn't make the perfect mark. In other words, this person can be hooked on being perfect. Now, this person gets a kick on sacrificing themselves for others because there has to be a reason, there has to be a motivation, because this gives them validation. These people are attracted also to narcissists. We've briefly mentioned narcissists, and maybe we need a deeper dive to a narcissist, but that's a term for a different day. So another characteristic of a masochist is someone that fails to stand up for himself or herself. A masochist is magnetized to drama, and they will run the other way if things feel too good, like, oh, this can't be right because it's too good to be true, kind of thing. So let me go back to that part about they're attracted to narcissists. So the narcissist would be more your antagonist, and then this masochist would be drawn to be around this person. So let's think about this personality trait for a minute. Who in our stories would this fit or be good for? I'm thinking this sounds like a character who works for the antagonist. Many antagonists don't work alone. They need somebody to help them to do their dirty work, but not someone who would rise above them. So remember, though, here's the important part. This personality receives pleasure in receiving pain, not in dishing it out. So this would not be a gang member under the kingpin, but maybe a servant to the kingpin. Okay? The kingpin could be your narcissist, and then the servant could be the masochist. Truthfully, in a lot of our stories, we don't get to see inside the antagonist layer. Now, the writer probably kind of knows what's going on, but the reader doesn't get to see inside the antagonist layer. We might, as the reader, might see who the antagonist sends out to fight, but we might not know of any servants. Still, we covered it today because the term is an antonym of sadistic or a sadist. And I honestly can't think of too many examples. Of course, there was Dobby in Harry Potter, who would bang his head against the wall or the bedpost. But And he did that when he had done something he perceived to be bad. But that does not mean he received pleasure from that. So that aspect is missing. Now, probably if I rewatched the series Stargate, I would find such people under Baal or under Anubis. But again, the aspect of pleasure might be missing. Because there was certainly terror or fear from those servants. They were very afraid of these masters. So if they didn't receive pleasure from that servitude or that, those gods that would annihilate just anybody and anything for any reason, so there has to be some sense of pleasure. So that might not cut it either. Anyway, leave a comment on if you know a masochist, either in real life or in a book or a movie, whatever, and tell, don't have to give names if it's a real person, but just say my neighbor or my friend or my best friend's sister or whatever, a masochist, and maybe give a little bit of example of how you've concluded that. Now, like I said before, today's discussion is a little short, so I'm going to throw in a pair of homographs. Okay, so we talked about homonyms, and that was the term I had when I was a kid, and then homographs are those with the same spelling, and then we said homophones were the same sound. So the two words I want to discuss today are minute and minute. Okay? So minute, you got a clock, you got the minute hand going around for the clock. So that's minute. Minute, very small, little bitty things. So you can say there are 60 minutes in an hour. And then the homograph minute would be, there's only a minute amount of evidence. So that means your case isn't very strong, right? Minute amount of evidence. Some synonyms for minute are miniature, tiny, minuscule, microscopic, that kind of thing. So you have synonyms where you can do it, but this is one of those ones where Google, it's spelled the same, so you don't have to worry about the spelling of it. But your readers, we don't hear minute a lot in today's time. So if your reader was reading along and they saw there was a minute amount of evidence, so they might read it that way instead of minute. Instead of saying there's only a minute, they might say there's only a minute amount of evidence, and they might be going, what did they mean? But hopefully they would get it with the context of it and stuff like that. I love words. I love to play with words. As we know, we're wordsmiths. So play with the words, have fun with it. That's a fun one because we use minute like every day. But we don't use the minute. We use minute a minute amount of time. Minute. It's hard to say sometimes. Okay, leave a comment on a set of homographs or homophones that you like or that give you trouble. And if you need to review these, then go back to Season 2, Episode 27. We played with several homonyms that day. I actually still have the list on the table. So we played with, bow and bow and bass and bass and read and red and new and red and red, So we had first the homophones, and then we had some homographs that we did that day. And we had fun that day and stuff. So just leave a comment on those if you need to review. Like I said, Season 2, Episode 27. Or probably if you could type in homonyms, I think was the name, or homophones, so you could get, I think I said homonyms. I didn't have all three words in the title. So if you just search for it, you should find it. Join me Friday for Eleni's Pride, Breaking Point, Chapter 7, The Villagers Scattering. join me Tuesday for another writing prompt or some jargon. I think I mentioned that I'm thinking about giving a setting and letting us take it from there. Because I was driving home, or I was writing. My husband does the driving most of the time. I was riding in the car with my husband, and I just saw a setting, and it just had my wheels turning. And so I was like, oh, this will be fun. Where could I go from here? And then I was like, where could my viewers go from here? So I will set up a setting. I think I will do that next Tuesday. So we'll have a writing prompt. And I will describe the setting, and I guess I'll have to post it too in the, if I have enough word count in the after the video, so y'all can screenshot it. And I'll set it up, and then you can start a story or a scene or something from there. It will be fun. Don't forget to visit my website, bymckella.com, and read some character bios. And send your writings and chapters to writewithmckella@gmail.com. If you hit the like and subscribe and the bell notification, then we will continue to write together. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, then please share it with them. This is Mckella with Write with Mckella. Bye for now.